9 years in jail and 14 to go. The painfully slow countdown to freedom for convicted murderer Sue Neill-Fraser. But former detectives claim the wrong person is behind bars, and they hope shocking new evidence will help her walk free.
As far as I'm concerned, this is one of the worst miscarriages of justice in Australian history that I'm aware of.
In terms of any kind of homicide investigation, it is a disgrace.
Australia Day 2009, and long-time partners Bob Chappell and Sue Neill-Fraser are about to embark on the adventure of a lifetime.
They're a loving couple. They just bought this yacht. They were renovating the yacht with a view of sailing around the oceans.
But the Four Winds, their luxury yacht, would never leave its mooring, and Bob Chappell would never be seen again. He's missing, presumed dead, and his partner Sue is charged with murder and jailed for 23 years in Risdon Women's Prison, Hobart. It's one of Australia's most mysterious murder cases. No body, no weapon, no motive, no eyewitnesses. And according to some of Australia's most experienced legal and police opinions, absolutely no justice.
Absolutely, complete miscarriage of justice.
Charlie Bazina is a former senior homicide detective with Victoria Police. He's investigated 300 disappearances, 200 of them homicides. His opinion?
We have got an innocent woman in jail.
Charlie's teamed up with another former Victoria Police detective, Colin McLaren, to fight for Sue's freedom. They want a royal commission.
So why did you two blokes take up this case?
I think it's a classic case of damsel in distress. There's a woman who's defenceless. She's in a concrete cell, probably will be for the next 13 years. Which ex-detective wouldn't?
Both men invested hundreds of hours dissecting the Tasmanian police investigation. They claim they've discovered new and compelling forensic evidence, police mistakes, police failings, even forensic exhibits that disappeared.
I think there's no doubt whatsoever that there's an alternate opinion into the death of Bob Chappell that is rock solid, and in exposing that, it exposes the ineptness of the police investigation. There's got to be a royal commission.
Also on board, one of Australia's most respected legal minds, Robert Richter.
The investigation was a shambles.
The QC goes further. He claims police clumsily trashed their own crime scene.
The very first thing that happens in a proper homicide investigation is isolating the crime scene. They didn't have any such thing. They had 20 people stomping over and over without knowing who is doing what and why and how they're polluting the crime scene.
So what happened that Australia Day? The Four Winds was tied up to its mooring in Sandy Bay, Hobart. Sue spent much of the day on board with Bob. Then at 2 p.m. she climbed into the yacht's dinghy or tender, went ashore, then home. Bob, as usual, stayed on board where he'd spend the night. The next day, the Four Winds was found semi-submerged. No sign of Bob, but downstairs, plenty of his blood. So, loving partner or killer? Sue is 9 years into her 23-year sentence because a jury believed the prosecution theory that she wanted out of the relationship and stood to gain financially, that she told lies that night, that she killed the 65-year-old radiation physicist with a wrench, then winched his body through the wheelhouse hatch and disposed of it. Laughable, say the mainland detectives. For a start, no wrench was ever found. And?
She's not physically capable.
She's got a crook hip.
She's got a crook hip. She's elderly. To be able to hold and carry a dead weight is impossible for a woman of her age and her physical condition.
With Victoria Police, Colin McLaren trained detectives in crime methodology. He claims Sue is innocent and there were other people on board the Four Winds that night. Investigating this, he came across a 16-year-old teenager named Megan Vass.
So Megan Vass has given a stat dec. In essence, what is she saying?
She's saying that she was on board on the night of the murder with 2 other people.
Doing what?
They were there for the purpose of doing a burglary on the yacht because there was a lot of yacht burglaries, as we've uncovered, at the time.
One of the men McLaren claims was Megan Vass's boyfriend with a history of breaking and entering.
So Bob's downstairs, presumably.
Yeah, but they don't know that. I think they're surprised by his presence because there was no tender.
Yeah, the dinghy's gone. The dinghy's gone, which means there's no one on the boat.
Correct.
Usually.
Correct.
McLaren claims Megan Vass told him there was a fight. He also claims at least 2 people were needed to winch the body aloft.
So what are you saying is this, Charlie?
We say that appears to be the bile or vomit of some sort of spit from Megan Vass to give that size of DNA.
Why would she have vomit?
We believe that she witnessed the killing and then she's put herself from below deck, above deck, that's where the DNA is found, and close enough to the forward hold where we say his body was excreted from. And that all ties in because the crime scene tells you the story and it fits everything that we've uncovered that was not led to the jury.
Despite her DNA sample, Megan Vass in court denied she was on the boat.
What's this document here?
That document is the detective's own notes that places Megan Vass on the yacht.
The detective's own notes. It says here on the second page, definitely on board.
He writes that.
Be nice to ask him about these as well. Rags found on the boat with vomit on them. They were never tested by police. The defence claims they've gone missing.
Tasmania is a very strange place. They don't have many mystery-type homicides. And when you have the homicide investigators there coming in, it's like calling in a plumber to do a heart surgery.
For a moment, let's put aside the innocence or guilt of Sue Neill-Fraser and focus on the police investigation. From the very start, it was a dog's breakfast. The defence claims the police had their theory. They had their suspect, and everything had to fit into that. If it didn't, it was either ignored or worse.
Things have gone missing, exhibits have gone missing. It's so telling that all the evidence should have been put. It would have created a reasonable doubt and she would have never been convicted.
Imagine you're a juror. You're told that Sue's dinghy was covered with Bob's blood. Pretty convincing, right? Fact is, there was no blood in the dinghy. The glowing blue is a reaction from the testing agent luminol, and Victoria Police Forensics supports that.
Here you actually have DNA. You actually have no blood in a dinghy where there's supposed to be blood. And you think to yourself, how on earth could this woman be convicted?
Then there's this red jacket left on a fence. There's a single dark hair attached to it. Sue, in shock and doped on Valium, tells police it's not hers. The prosecution alleges she's dumped it. A police officer throws the key piece of evidence in the boot of his car. Later, it spent 4 days on the ground in a police car park. But in court, police testified it had remained in their custody. 8 years after Bob's murder, the DPP finally relented. The single dark hair was DNA tested. It wasn't Sue's.
The main argument is that there's enough evidence to demonstrate that the conviction is completely unsafe and unsatisfactory and should be set aside and she should be acquitted.
We're not suggesting in any way that Megan Vass is guilty of any crime, just that she was on board that night. And the jury, as the defence claims, didn't get the full story.
Tragic. I don't believe she did it. Don't believe she was capable of doing it. And I don't believe that there was a legitimate, objective investigation. And so it's been a horrendous miscarriage of justice.
We contacted the Tasmanian Director of Public Prosecutions, but they declined to comment on Sue Neill-Fraser's matter while it's currently before the Supreme Court. The full statement is on our homepage.